Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find this show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, PorkinsPolicyReview.com, and as well on a host of other stations later in the week on Fridays. And I'm very excited about today's show. It is, of course, Election Day, and joining me for this special election-themed episode are two very good friends of mine, and faithful listeners will, of course, know who they are, Tom Secker of SpyCulture.com and Aaron Franz of AgeOfTransitions.com. He is the host of Transresister Radio, as well as the co-host, along with his friend Adam, of Themes and Memes. And he's also the co-host of Uncle the Podcast, and it is Aaron's first time on the new radio show. So, Aaron, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me here, Pierce.
Yeah, excellent. And of course, Tom is here as well. And Tom, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Raring to go.
Right. Excellent. So I guess the first order of business is Aaron, did you vote today?
I didn't. Is that bad?
No. I mean, I assume you're planning on not voting.
Yeah. That's okay. The plan. Not voting. Sorry.
And obviously, Tom, you didn't vote either.
Why do you assume that?
Well, I guess I'll say I did actually end up voting, and I voted for a very interesting write-in candidate, Michael Ingbar, who I only recently found out about a couple of days ago. I was looking through the New York City Board of Elections for write-in candidates, and I sort of looked for the craziest candidate that I could find. And Michael Ingbar is a New Yorker. He runs a gallery in Soho in Manhattan, and his tagline is "Make America Dance Again." He's very into dances and dance contests. He thinks that's how we should solve our problems. He has a very interesting solution that won me over for his proposal to build the wall with Mexico. And his solution is to build a series of handball courts along the border and then have the World Championship handball tournament held every year there. Thus paying for the construction of the wall. And he's got some other really interesting solutions for all sorts of problems that New Yorkers will be familiar with. And of course, his big goal was to beat Mickey Mouse, who last election got 17 votes. So hopefully he'll beat that record. And I guess in that sense, your vote really does matter if you vote for Michael Ingbar. It's not throwing it away because we've got to defeat Mickey Mouse. But anyways, I guess that aside, Aaron, we haven't, you and I have not really talked too much about the election. I think we might have talked like in emails and stuff like that. But how are you feeling today on election day? Because I'll say that for me, the mood in the city was a bit kind of subdued. I thought that there would be a little bit more, I don't know if excitement is the right word, but there was like no urgency, not even in like anti-Trump sort of a way. And, anyone that is from New York City, knows that everybody in New York City hates Trump. And I didn't even really see that. So how are things, over in Orange in California?
Well, leading up to the election, I had not seen any yard signs, or I've seen some, but barely any. For the presidential elections, at least, almost nothing. There were a lot of yard signs for the local initiatives, things like that, tons of them. And, people would have the sign for yes on this proposition on one month, and the next one would be no. They're having their little war there.
Right.
So that was fun, but I've only seen a couple of Trump signs and 0 Hillary signs. So, I mean, it's definitely lackluster for Hillary, although, I don't know. I made the mistake of watching TV today. I'm going to be doing so all day, and they're definitely kind of like already calling the election for Hillary. And that's even Fox News is doing that. Like, well, yeah, we want Trump to win, but he's not gonna. It's basically like what the TV is saying. And yeah, it's just been, nobody's been really excited the whole time, I feel, and today as well.
Yeah, I know. I guess you sort of, I guess I'll say, I sort of got excited last night. You know, I don't know what that is. If that's like that weird, like innate, like excitement over voting or something. But it's sort of, I mean, I hate to use this analogy, but it kind of felt like a, you know, Christmas Eve type thing. Like, ooh, what's going to happen? It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I got that. I felt that too. You can't help it.
And then I guess I'll confess, I have a feeling that my vote really didn't count because when you do a write-in candidate, I think you fill out the paper ballot, then you put it into the electronic machine, and then you're supposed to, I believe, actually then type in the name. But before I could even do that, it didn't even show up on my screen. And then an election worker very forcefully told me to move along and that, you know, I was done. You didn't have to do anything else and just get out of here. And they sort of ushered me out. So, and then you get that weird, like, oh shit, like, well, like, what do I do? Like my, you know, it didn't go through and you're sort of wondering, well, does it, you know, really actually matter? Of course not.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's that sort of weird way that, even for the people that don't care, you can still get upset, over your protest vote that doesn't matter, not mattering.
Yeah, well, it's an event. It's a real event. It gets the adrenaline going. There's no way around it. Indeed.
And, if anyone's hearing me, I've started early. I've got my beer open right now. Because I just, it's been a long 2 weeks for me with work and, with this as well. It's been a long, I don't even, it feels like it's been going on for a year. So, I've opened my beer. I'm now celebrating and relaxed, looking forward to watching, the returns later. But, I don't know, Tom, I know you were talking a little bit about this recently in your show with, our friend Robbie Martin, but what's the kind of perspective in England? I wonder if almost in overseas there's maybe even more kind of urgency. I know that people do tend to look at the U.S. elections as like sort of the World Series of elections, you know? It's like a global event in a lot of ways. And I was watching like Bloomberg this morning, and of course everyone is a little nervous with markets and what's going to happen. And so what's the sense over in England, at least where you are?
Well, I mean, you're right. Lots of people over here, and to be honest, all around the world, certainly all across Europe, this is the one foreign election that they all care about for some unknown reason. Well, I guess it isn't an unknown reason. I mean, you know, America is, at least on paper, still the world's biggest economy, most powerful nation, and all of that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part over here, people are just sort of disgusted at Donald Trump. And as far as I can tell, most of the people I know are actually either overtly or at least deep down rooting for Hillary Clinton. Just, you know, they want more of the same. I guess they look at Clinton as a safe candidate. They know what they're going to get from her. But just piggybacking on what you said about your experience going to vote, I remember I think it was the 2014 European Parliament elections that we had. I went in and spoiled my ballot. I went in and wrote a mocking comment next to every single party name and then took a photograph of it. And the election official, like in the town hall where I went to cast my ballot, was really quite rude and patronizing to me. She really seemed to think that like this was an affront to her doing her important job as an election official or something. I mean, I don't know why people get so het up about that. If someone wants to go in and vote for Mickey Mouse or the counter Mickey Mouse candidate, in your case, I say fair enough. And on that subject, I do think it's important not to forget that George Lucas did tell the truth about Disney when he sold them the Star Wars franchise and called them white slavers. And so defeating Mickey Mouse, I think, is an important part of this election. It's probably the most important part of this election.
No, that's how I felt when I cast my ballot for Michael Ingbar. Well, I guess one sort of aspect to this that I kind of wanted to get in, especially with you, Aaron, is maybe the like occult side of this, or the I don't know, esoteric meaning behind voting and whatnot. And of course we have the recent WikiLeaks revelation that John Podesta was into spirit cooking with Maria Abramovich, the performance artist. And I guess elections are in a lot of ways like occult rituals, and this has certainly been like a trial by fire, I think, for all people. Those who are actually care about who wins, and those of us who don't care, but we still have to kind of go through it. And I don't know, Aaron, what's your kind of take on that, or the idea of this being like an occult ritual, and also maybe even this people got so sort of hot and bothered over the fact that Podesta was involved in this. I guess, of course, ignoring that, like all world leaders are into this. Tony Blair performed some weird ritual in Mexico with his wife. I think he used to keep his fingernail clippings as well, and use them. And Ronald Reagan, of course, had a psychic, and all of these people are into this. But what did you make of the spirit cooking, and I guess the larger sort of idea of this being like some sort of occult ritual?
Sure. Well, voting definitely has a magical quality, and when you talk about magic, the occult, and all that, it has so much to do with the mind and perceptions of how the world works, and shaping the perceptions of large groups of people. And that's where the real action is when you're talking about magic and sorcery and all this. I was working on a grand scale, and propaganda fits right into this too, because it's a form of effective magic. But, the concept that all the go-to prefabricated cliches that you ever hear about voting, where people will go to the polls and they say, well, I did my part, I can't complain because I voted and it's over. And also people are just saying, well, whoever wins, oh well, I voted. I mean, literally, I was watching the TV again this morning, and there were people saying all those canned lines that you've heard 1,000 times over. And there's definitely that's magic at work when I see that. It's like, okay, you're not even thinking about these things when you're saying them. You're just saying them. And they don't really, the sayings don't really have meaning, but they do. It has no meaning. It's a way for you to not see the true meaning of anything and just gloss over everything and take the easy way out, but act as though you did your civic duty and therefore you're a good citizen and you can just go about your business not paying attention to anything anymore. So I'd say that's like the big magic act when it comes to elections right there. It's like getting the people all riled up about the idea of democracy and holding that up. And the spirit cooking thing is, gosh, where do you begin? I mean, that's just more of like the alt media and everything that they've been pushing out for years and years, just getting more and more into the mainstream. And I mean, to me, that's the big story of this election, is like all the anti-establishment ideas that used to be controversial, the realm of conspiracy theory, well, it's all being mainstreamed now. And it's the anti-establishment year, and it's the perfect time for that.
No, definitely. I thought maybe the along those same lines, too, the spirit cooking is, to me, kind of had that element of again, telling us, like, I was so surprised that people were, shocked and outraged that this would be going on. While at the same time, that's all they talk about. Everyone's Rothschild, occultist, Zionist,
satanic.
Yeah, satanic, blood worshipping and all that kind of nonsense. And I mean, it is true. They are definitely, or many of them are into that. But it almost sort of struck me as, let's again put that out there and just sort of normalize it. So, okay, yeah, John Podesta did spirit cooking. What's the big deal? Like, next election, when we have somebody who was actually running the spirit cooking, ceremony. Oh yeah, well, whatever. It's okay. That's not that weird.
Yeah, and it's never about actually understanding what any of those occult concepts even mean. It's just about putting out there to get a reaction from the audience. And for the alternative media, it's just about gaining your audience members, and it's nothing more than that. They could care less about the truth when it comes to those ideas. They don't care. They just want to rile people up, get them all excited, and keep them listening. What's his name? Joe Biggs. He's involved with InfoWars. He did some bit about spirit cooking I watched. And in that, he goes on saying, like, Hillary is Satan. If you're a Christian, you have to vote for Trump. And he literally said, a vote for Trump is a vote for God. He said that. A vote for Trump is a vote for God. And I'm like, you're saying this and you're accusing other people of being satanic? That's actually a very satanic thing to say. I don't know if I want to get into the particulars of that, but it is. You know what I mean? And he doesn't understand that. He doesn't care about that because he just wants the attention. And it'll just keep going that way. And, everybody's Satanists and that's all there is to it. It's really annoying.
Oh, yeah. And it's also kind of like terrifying, too, to think that, voting for a human being, a mortal person is somehow akin to voting for this omnipotent spiritual force.
Donald Trump, no.
Yeah, of all people too. Yeah,
the most materialistic, self-worshipping a-hole you can imagine.
Yeah.
Like voting for that guy is a vote for God. What planet are you living on?
Yeah, well, and the, serial adulterer, probable child molester, right, that's the, that's like, I don't even understand, the conservatives that claim to be supporting him. It's like, I couldn't think of a less conservative person in terms of morals and even spending and stuff.
And of course he's buddy with Richard Haass, and he's got him on the list of people to be on his cabinet. And where's Alex Jones calling this out? Kurt Nimmo wrote an article on InfoWars in, March? I think it was a few months back. Kurt Nimmo wrote an article about Trump's connections to Richard Haass of the CFR and Trilateral Commission. And obviously it was linking Trump to him and saying, hey, look, this guy's establishment. Trump is the establishment. We should be wondering about this. Well, lo and behold, a couple months later, Kurt Nimmo was released from the InfoWars staff. Gee, I wonder why. And of course, he's signed all sorts of non-disclosure agreements. He can't say anything about it, but I think we can speculate on what's going on there a little bit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, well, and I mean, again, too, the way that Alex Jones has sort of pushed alternative media and alternative ideas into the mainstream by supporting Donald Trump is just it should really kind of just make anyone weary, of what's going on here. And I guess just back to John Podesta, this is also a guy that is obsessed with UFOs. And is obsessed with ufology and aliens and so, I mean, it's not, and that's not to knock, people that are interested in that. Like Tom and I talked, in some depth about, our stance on UFOs in, one of our episodes of the CIA in Hollywood. But, this guy was already kind of out there. So the spirit cooking thing was like, well, duh. I mean, what'd you expect? I mean, this guy is kind of a lunatic already. And has this sort of bizarre, obsession with wanting to declassify documents related to aliens. I believe he's even on things he's gone in front of the National Press Club and talked about UFOs and how there's a big cover up and all this sort of nonsense, or not nonsense, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So this guy was already out there to begin with. So the spirit cooking thing seems sort of par for the course. No shit, these guys do that. This is just and Maria Abramovich is tame in comparison.
Yeah. The story was just in time for Halloween. It was just after Halloween. Actually, they just missed that. They should have done it a couple days earlier. It would have been perfect. But it was just after Halloween, at least.
Well, great costume ideas, Tom, any comments on spirit cooking? Have you ever done it, or you have any insight?
I have absolutely what is spirit cooking? I don't want to. Well, no, I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to admit my total ignorance on this. What is spirit cooking?
Yeah, well, I guess I guess I don't know fully. I mean, this is an interesting thing too, because of course the alternative media is like, oh, spirit cooking, duh. We all know what spirit cooking is. But I guess it really refers to a bunch of performance pieces that Maria Abramovich has done in the past, where she, I guess, took a mixture of her menstrual blood and other bodily fluids, and put them in a big bucket and mixed it up, and then painted on the walls and stuff. And those are the videos like that people see. Or that were like plastered all over Twitter and whatnot, is from like back when she did it in, I think it was in 1994, 1995. There was like a piece of her painting some bizarre stuff on like the side of like a wall in a studio or in a gallery probably. And then she's done other things too, where I think there's like been a person floating in what looks like her menstrual blood and a bunch of other things. And there's like a video or a picture of her and Lady Gaga doing that. But I guess my general understanding was that it sort of refers to more to the mixing of like bodily fluids and whatnot. And then the ritual of like writing out words and phrases in that. I might be totally wrong on all of it. I mean, you can tell I really don't care too much, if people are going to be doing this. But so with that in mind, Tom, any thoughts on the fact that John Podesta was apparently going over to Maria Abramovich's house for a private spirit cooking with some close friends?
Well, there's potentially two ways of looking at that, I think. The first is that Podesta is rat crap crazy, which he probably is, given everything else we know about him and everything else that's come out of these emails. The other one is, it sounds like a very imaginative excuse to have an affair, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, seriously, if he is doing this, that is weird. I don't mean to kind of alienate and castigate people who are different and weird, and people can be into different and weird stuff. But for people who are supposed to be engaged in the world of real politics, policy, what are we actually going to do about these things? What are we actually going to do about economic issues or welfare issues or foreign policy or any of this stuff? You think, why are they so deeply into those kinds of things? Why does this theme keep coming up, whereby people who are supposed to be making realistic, so-called tough choices, that's what they're always branding themselves as, is, real-minded people who can make the tough choices and take responsibility for the real world. But they're not. They're seeking refuge and escape from the real world in bizarre occult ritual art and all kinds of other stuff for that matter. I mean, when was the last time we actually had like a normal, sober candidate who wasn't, either a child rapist or a UFO nut or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I suppose Obama, you could say, was relatively normal in those kinds of respects, but a lot of the people around him weren't. So, you know where I'm going with this? That it kind of betrays the fact that they're claiming to be the ones who can take the responsible, mature decisions that have to be made and all of this kind of stuff. And you just think, no wonder the world is so kind of screwed up, and no wonder government in particular is so screwed up, when these are the sorts of people who were actually putting in positions where they can decide on policy. And of course it just goes to the fact that this entire election has not been fought on policy. Not really. The only policy that anyone can really remember either of these candidates endorsing in a consistent way is the Great Wall of Trump. That's it. What does Hillary Clinton actually stand for? What does Trump actually stand for besides let's build a bloody wall? It's all identity politics and character assassination and so-called personality clashes and so on. And it's also the whole thing has turned into a reality TV show in the worst possible sense of that term. So that, yeah, policy itself, real politic, has been completely lost in this election and this political dialogue. So in this country as well, don't get me wrong, but in this kind of stuff, I do think America truly does lead the world.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And just a quick clarification. So during the spirit cooking, it is a mixture of blood, sperm, and breast milk. But this is according to WikiLeaks, which is sourcing this to wearechange.org. So, take that with a grain of salt, I guess. And one of the pieces that Maria Abramovich did is you can see the picture where she writes on the side of a wall, quote, "With a sharp knife cut deeply into the middle finger of your left hand, eat the pain." So yeah, I mean, I guess in a larger sense, it is like, okay, even if, right, this is just some weird sort of thing, it does raise the question of like, well, is this okay though? And that's not to knock, people who are into the occult, because, I mean, Aaron, we've talked about many times on my show, on your show, in private, that people don't, people see the word occult and think that it's evil. They think that it's all sort of nefarious. They don't really understand the deeper meaning behind, what some of these rituals mean. And of course, they don't even understand that, I mean, Christianity in particular, you can't get a more occult mainstream religion, I mean, all of the rituals, all of the iconography, all of that is very esoteric and very much based in pagan traditions and things like that. So they don't understand it. But it is like, do you like would they ever do this in the White House? I have no idea. But it is sort of a kind of a what was weird too is that it really didn't even faze me. I was like, spirit cooking, sure, whatever. Yeah. Like, pile it on, give me some more. Like, what else you got? Like,
spirit, cook me up some good food. I'm hungry.
Yeah. Because it was just like nothing has surprised me right now.
Yeah. We as a collective are so far from being able to understand anything that goes under the moniker of a cult that we had ought to just leave it alone. If we're going to be dumb about it and just put out all these stupid, shocking stories, we ought to just not deal with it, because it takes a lot of like maturity. It takes a lot of philosophical strength to like deconstruct what these ideas mean. And even your description of the spirit cooking and what it is, it seems like such a hodgepodge of these different occult practices that have existed a long time, as far as anybody can remember. I mean, there are all sorts of crazy occult practices that are legitimate in the sense that people have done them and they have very specific meanings. This thing seems like they just kind of threw all those things together and made it seem scary and weird, or they're just doing it to be weird because they don't understand any occult concepts themselves. Even the people doing it, they're just caught up in the mess like the rest of us. We don't understand what's going on, but it's fun to do occult things because it feels good, and that's actually very disturbing. So I'll give the people that are calling everybody out on or calling Podesta and everyone out on spirit cooking, I guess they're right in that sense, and that they probably don't even know what the heck they're doing anyway.
Oh no, yeah, definitely. And again too, I think that's, we talk so much about mainstreaming alternative views, and obviously that's all Maria Abramovich was doing, was, as you said, sort of taking all of the, I'm sure she read like half of a book or something, on occult practices, and took a bunch of different ideas and kind of jammed them all together. And she's all about shocking people. I mean, in full disclosure, I generally speaking hate most of Maria Abramovich's art, if not all of it. And so much of it is like, that's what's wrong with performance art and things like, and I'm not opposed to performance art at all, but, she represents many times the worst of it. And she's just mainstreaming that too for effect and for shock value and
everybody's doing things for attention. That's it. Everybody wants attention to themselves, and that is satanic. I'll say wanting the most attention to yourself, doing things just for your own benefit, nothing else. That's like the epitome of Satanism. So if you go around pointing the finger at all these evil Satanists, before you start doing that, you might want to take a look at yourself. But these aren't the sorts of people that are really interested in that. They're not interested in the truth. They're just interested in selling something they brand as truth, registered trademark. No, thank you.
Well, let's explore that a little bit, because I think I think I've seen that very much become more socially acceptable in alternative circles. The kind of like, all this sort of talk about natural rights and things like that. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, or an interesting philosophical discussion to have, a lot of that does sort of go back to the traditional Satanist, I can't remember the phrase off the top of my head, but, do whatever you want to do, basically. And
do what thou wilt is the whole of the law.
Yes. Yeah, right. Exactly.
The Telemic idea. Yeah.
And that has seemed to kind of like take root, more and more. And we've also seen the alternative community and media kind of, again, fall into that, but maybe without realizing it, maybe, sort of understanding that a little bit. And again, too, this is sort of like, the way people idolize Trump is almost beyond regular adulation for a politician, and does sort of enter into the realm of like, occult worship or certainly this is kind of like, he will solve everything and he does whatever he wants, Yeah. He wants to grope a woman, that's fine, he's doing what he wants to do. And there seems to, that mentality is sort of permeated so much with a lot of people, that they seem like, it's fine to be racist if I want to be racist. It's fine to, abuse people, whatever. It doesn't matter. So I don't know. Any comments on that?
He embodies all these ideas of which he is not an appropriate embodiment at all. He's the anti-establishment candidate, right? Well, no, not at all. He's a billionaire, first of all. Well, if we want to believe that, but that's a separate thing. Let's just assume he's a billionaire. He's got Richard Haass as his number one political buddy behind the scenes, probably going to put him on his cabinet, or he certainly would think about it. And he's doing all these horrible things. He can do no wrong. It's just the inability to actually critique what it is that you're promoting. That we're back in the realm of magic again, because certainly a magic spell has been cast over the supporters of either candidate, but certainly of Trump, probably even more so of Trump, in that they actually believe he's like this savior swooping down to come in and fix everything, when he's just a self-absorbed, selfish guy. That's what he is at his essence, and he's just exploiting every little thing he can to get more attention to himself. And I don't even think he cares about winning, to be quite honest. He just wants more attention to build himself up as he goes forward. And I don't think he wants to go forward being the president. He wants to go forward doing other things.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, too, for all of the progress that we might have made in terms of thinking that voting is silly, or understanding the limitations of voting for two sides of the same coin. Now it's no, but this side is a lot different from that side. It really matters. This time around is different, because Hillary is the Antichrist, and Trump will, save us on during the rapture or whatnot. He will help us ascend to heaven. So again, kind of moving people back into that mindset again. So really disturbing kind of stuff. But I guess we can be happy in that hopefully this will sort of die down. I don't know quite. It almost seems like it won't. Like it's been designed for it to not. Yeah. Because whoever wins will we're never going to hear the end of, the other guy losing.
Yeah.
So and maybe I sort of talked about that in the last episode I did, is the notion of like, that they just want us to all carry around this anger, like perpetually. And they kind of always want us to sort of hate people and or hate one another, and because like if Hillary Clinton wins, it's Trump will this is all rigged and whatnot. If it's the other way around, I mean, I don't even want to go to work and have to hear from people, that I threw the election because I didn't vote for her.
Yeah.
So. It seems like it's just like this never-ending cycle, and I guess maybe with that in mind, Tom, I know we've talked about Kanye West as becoming president or running for president. Again with this idea of this like constant sort of anger carrying over. And of course, with this election lowering the bar so much that Kanye West actually looks like a decent candidate almost, And I hate Kanye West more than I hate Maria Abramovich. So, how do you see this sort of like moving forward? Again, from like an outside perspective.
You're venting quite a lot of spleen tonight, aren't you, Peter?
I know I am. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just it's the beer talking right now.
No, but I get it because, the whole country, the whole of America has been sort of thrust into this incredibly polarized, antagonistic, angry, fearful state. And it doesn't matter which side of the spectrum you're on, who you're voting for, that you're still kind of being forced into this position where you've got to hate the other candidate more than you like your own. Certainly in the case of Hillary, that's her whole campaign is just, Trump is so awful. But you're right, with Trump, the passion, I guess, that Trump supporters seem to quite often express, the real, not just in terms of like the vitriol and the racism and that kind of thing, but I mean even the more like moderate Trump supporters are still very much captivated by this man in a way that for other people, we just can't understand that. We aren't seeing the same person that they're seeing, most fundamentally. That Trump has successfully ground down, not just Trump, he's exploiting a much wider trend, but he has exploited it better than anyone else I've seen recently in politics, ground down their sense of reality, ground down their attachment to what are we actually going to do here, what can we actually do here, what's actually possible in terms of policy and decision making and so on. But it really doesn't even matter anymore what he says or what he does. They'll still believe in him. They'll still believe that he's somehow. Well, and the question for me is, like, rationally speaking, if Donald Trump was the Messiah, and I know he isn't, but give me some rope here. If Donald Trump, why has he waited until now? And the reason he's waited until now is because it's only now, in the era of mass media, social media, 24-hour rolling news, reality TV, and so on, that someone like Trump could actually stand a chance of becoming president. If he tried this even 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible. People were still somewhat attached to reality at that point. Whereas now, like even the Clinton supporters, you see some of the tripe that they come out with, like the ridiculous excuses that they keep getting fed, and so many of them swallow it up. Like, it'll be so important to have a woman president. I really want my daughter to, see that you can become a woman president. I'm like, well, okay, I can understand your desire for your, 6-year-old daughter to see this on the TV, and that means something to her. That gives her a sense of ambition and self-worth. I totally get that side of it. But then you look at Hillary Clinton herself and you think, that's the role model you want to set for your 6-year-old daughter. Mm-hmm. That's what you want to convince her is success in life, is marrying this philandering asshole who doesn't care about her, who himself became president and thus launched her political career. That's what you want to tell her? But none of that matters. The actual thinking through of the process, what am I actually saying here, what are the actual implications, just doesn't seem to be happening. So like you say, Aaron, both candidates have cast a spell on their respective audiences, very much like a stage magician. We are the audiences watching this. We are participating in it only in as much as we're being fooled by it. As to where it's going, what's it going to look like going forward? Again, it's so polarized. People are not just being forced away from the real world. They're being forced away from any kind of moderate or reasonable approach to any issue, whatever, in politics, it seems, towards the most extreme views. And it's like whether that's a kind of neoliberal, moderate-sounding extremism or Trump's quasi-fascist extremism, doesn't really matter. They're both pretty horrible. They're both extreme in, for anyone who is actually still attached to reality, and I'm getting that many of us left. Going forward, the joke of it is, whoever wins, they're not going to be able to do anything. They're not really going to be able to, if Hillary Clinton genuinely was some kind of progressive feminist or whatever, like she pretends to be, she wouldn't be able to implement any of that anyway because of the abject hatred and opposition to everything that Hillary Clinton is. And likewise with Trump. What's he going to do? He's going to fail to build a wall and say a lot of racist stuff. And that's about it. And I'm thinking, well, so what? Really, in the grand scheme of things, that's not going to make any massive difference to America going forward. And so, the irony is that just as we're paralyzed spectators to this absurd circus we're calling an election, when they actually get into power, they're going to be almost as much a paralyzed spectator as we are. The actual power of the presidency isn't that much, is it?
Well, it seems like this election, we've been led to believe that it is, it's very important that, the president sort of stands above everybody else. I don't know, maybe in that sense, I think they're oddly enough, there's this like the reverence, I think, for what the president can do or what the president is supposed to represent has sort of been, I don't know, fleshed out a little bit. Because I think for a lot of people, they saw Obama as like, well, oh wait, where was the change? Or was this just a continuation of, the same sort of war on terror nonsense, the domestic spying, and you look at him now and it's like, when he's not on like Jimmy Kimmel Live, it's like, what else, what does he do? But now it seems as if, but if Trump was the president, he would solve everything on day one, and the same thing with Hillary. It's like if Clinton wins, then suddenly there will be racial and gender equality for all. We're all gonna, we're not gonna have to pay for college or whatever. All of the sort of ideas that they've put out there. So I don't know. Maybe in that sense, it's also about kind of again strengthening the idea of the office of the presidency. Because come on, everybody. I would hope people that are really looking at this critically know that the president doesn't have that much say. If the CIA wants to do something, they're going to do it. They're not going to ask for congressional approval, let alone presidential approval. I don't know. I am left. I guess I'm happy that it's sort of over, but I agree with you, Tom, in that the future looks fairly bleak. You'd almost like wish for some sort of like crazy scenario where, neither of them win or something like that. But, that seems very unlikely.
We're living in an era of appearances where, propaganda, marketing rules supreme, and it's all about who can push their ideas the best. And in order to do that, you look for the biggest forum you can to spread your message. And the presidential election just happens to be that forum because, it's the highest office. It's not the only office, right? There's the three branches of government. Well, let's not get bogged down in that. We're just trying to spread our message here to the widest possible audience. And the audience is taking that. And it's all about, again, the same stuff we're talking about is you make things flashy, you get people's attention, you make things controversial. Your network or your program or your ideas, well, that's the big thing, your ideas get the most attention. You see? So you get the most attention. And so it's all about directing people's focus to whatever that single point is that you can make. And again, you got everybody out there doing that all at once. And with social media and internet, there's a million different people doing this simultaneously. So of course they're getting more and more extreme. Everything's getting more and more extreme. It seems that way, at least, because everybody's trying to shout the loudest to get the most attention. And those who do shout the loudest have the reddest face. They get the most attention, but they're the furthest away from reality. So the further away you get from reality, the more followers you get. And the more followers you get, the more people actually start believing this view of the world, which is completely false. Things are not as bad as they're being advertised on all channels. But it's just the perception of that. And so it's sad to see people buying into this.
No, on that note, it is very easy to think that everything is falling apart, and Tom, I'm sure you've had to deal with the talk about how the Muslims are marching in and they're going to take over Europe, and every woman in Europe is at threat of being raped by Muslims. Yet, of course, we got to stop talking about rape culture and all. It's all BS. But apparently, but when it comes to Muslims, it's a huge deal. And the same thing here, where we hear all of this rhetoric about all sort of, the police are good. It's these, uppity minority folks that just, can't handle it and whatnot. But I'll say right now, I got a new iPhone today. And that's been the most important. I haven't been able to make a phone call. I haven't had service for like a month. And like, that's more important to me right now, is now I can actually like phone somebody at work or anybody. And, it's like those little things. That's what really, that makes more of an impact on people's lives. I know that's very kind of silly and, maybe it's very, very satanic and materialistic of me, but that is sort of like a higher priority than some idiot making it into the White House, and, again, everyone should kind of just take a step back and like, look at the people around you, look at like your life, look at, and again, for people in the Western world, it's fairly good. I think it's just, we're not used to, we become very, happy in this sort of, quote, luxurious way that we live in the West. So any kind of bump in the road, suddenly it's like the sky is falling. Whereas it's like, well, try living in, I don't know, El Salvador or some anywhere else. It's really tough there. We become so sort of, just sort of complacent and just sort of assume that, everything is going to be great. And again, Aaron, we talked about like nostalgia on an episode of Themes and Memes, and the way that nostalgia kind of intoxicates people. And anyone that's been watching the latest season of South Park will of course understand, the power of nostalgia with the member berry characters. But here's a question that I'll open up to both of you, because we're getting towards the end of the first hour. But again, along the same lines of the occult stuff, are we the willing fool, the voting public? Because it almost seems like we kind of, we like want this, and I guess that is like a willing fool, but it almost seems like we've gone beyond the willing fool category into the way I see it. We're just acquiescing completely, and it's like, yes, bring it on. We enjoy this sort of hatred. So Aaron, are we the willing fool in this election and in getting so sort of, excited and angry about this?
Yes, I think so. And definitely, I would say that when it comes to the two sides of the political aisle, they're both falling victim to the willing fool archetype for sure, to very dangerous ends. That's what is getting dangerous, is that all these ideas are taking over people's minds, and the concept of self-fulfilling prophecy doesn't matter if it's real. You're going to make it real if you believe it enough. And just the beliefs that both the right and the left hold are getting more and more extreme, and the clashes with one another are what disturb me the most. The violent clashes that are now more and more characterizing political dialogue. You've got race politics, identity politics, and both sides of the aisle are falling victim to playing into that. And when it comes to a willing fool, Adam and I dissected the movie The Wicker Man. And in that movie, it's such a good portrayal of that concept. And the main character is a willing fool, and he represents the sort of like conservative, the right side of the political aisle. And I do see that happening. Like what happens to that character, I think, is literally happening on a mass scale, especially if you're talking about the alt-right movement and how extreme they're getting. I think that they're just beating their war drum so intensely. And just like they seem so intent on destroying themselves that nothing less than going down in a blaze of glory will appease them at this point. You know what I mean? They're going to walk right up into that Wicker Man and say, "Okay, light me on fire. I'm on the side of God, and that's my victory. My own death is my own salvation." And that's a Christian idea, but a twisted Christian idea. But I think it's playing out now.
Oh yeah, sure. No. I mean, the idea of martyrdom too, has seemed to also sort of taken root, you know, and that this is all for some sort of greater, higher goal and power and whatnot. And it is like disturbing too. Because again, when you convince a population, or when you can manipulate them into believing that, the way that Trump and Hillary Clinton have, you can convince them of a lot more crazier stuff, convince them to commit a lot more crazier things, once you kind of have them whipped up in that mindset. Tom, any comments on the willing fool idea with the electorate? I mean, I guess that's kind of obvious, but I don't know.
I don't know if it's that obvious, but it's certainly an important point. And I agree with what both of you are saying. To my mind, though, there is, just to go back to what Aaron was saying, like at the start of this show, there's so many people who think, you know, I'm participating in the democracy by going and casting my vote, and then I'm essentially politically apathetic for another 2 years or 4 years or until, you know, whenever the next election, the next opportunity is. And you think that isn't democracy. That's a sham of a democracy, because you're actually politically disengaged and disempowered for a greater proportion of the time than you're actually engaged. And yet, so many people believe that. Like you say, both of you who told me about this, that you both of you felt this pressure, this social pressure. You've got to go and vote for someone. You've got to somehow participate in this. And that, on a mass scale, that is willing foolishness. The idea that you have to. Why do you have to? Can you not be politically engaged in other ways constantly and not actually vote and actually have more influence and actually be a more engaged member of a democracy? Isn't in fact that what democracy means? Or should mean, at least. That's what it should be, is people actually engaged in the political process so that more of their demands are heard and they have a greater role and a greater power and a greater influence over what actually happens. Whereas instead it's more this, let's engage in this massive reality TV sham where we phone in to vote for our favorite X Factor contestant. And then, we're done until another year, so we don't care until someone sticks it on the TV again. That's, that it just isn't democracy, or it's a kind of, tabloid TV democracy. It's fueling political disempowerment far more than it's fueling political empowerment, and therefore is in a lot of ways anti-democratic.
Well, we've perfect timing there, Tom. Thank you both for joining me in the first hour. Aaron, everyone can find your work over at ageoftransitions.com as well as themesandmemes.com, and I encourage all the listeners to go there. And thank you for joining us in the first hour, Aaron.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here, Pierce. It was great. Great to be here.
Excellent. And we will be continuing this conversation with Tom Secker in the second hour.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
Practically narcotics.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Are you feeling embarrassed and stuck because you can't focus or concentrate? I have a confession to make. I spent years unable to think clearly, like I was in a fog. I was going through the motions, running my companies, and I hated feeling groggy and mentally sluggish. I couldn't get ahead like this. It's no secret, the powers that be want us dumbed down. Chemicals, fluoride, our brains are under siege, and we are experiencing lower IQs. But now there's a weapon to fight back and win. Introducing DNA Evolve, a revolutionary breakthrough in a category of cognitive enhancers called nootropics. I've been using DNA Evolve and couldn't feel better. For me, it works. It feels great to get things done again and get ahead. Try a free sample for yourself at DNAEvolveSample.com. That's DNAEvolveSample.com. Supplies are limited, so go to DNAEvolveSample.com right now.
Did you know there are 3 million edible food plants on Earth, and none have the nutritional value of the hemp plant? HempUSA.org offers you hemp protein powder. It does not contain chemicals or THC, is non-GMO, and is 100% gluten-free. Hemp protein powder burns fat, builds muscle, contains 53% protein, and feeds the body the nutrients it needs. Call 888-910-4367 and see what our powder, seeds, and oil can do for you. Only at HempUSA.org. HempUSA.org introduces 3 brand new detox formulations of microplant powder. Brain Fuel for depression, bipolar disorders, and stress. Total Care, anti-cancer agent that cleans the liver and organs and increases memory. Rejuvenate, invigorates and heals the body, mind, and spirit. These products are your alternative to pharmaceuticals. Call 888-910-4367 and like us on Facebook. We ship worldwide. Only at HempUSA.org.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Sensen, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
What about show business? Show business, completely dishonest, corrupt, and full of shit, but in a nice way. Plenty of expensive drugs and perverted sex. If you're going to be full of shit, might as well enjoy your work. Then you have the media, not just the news media, let's include them all. The media are almost literally exploding with bullshit because they're located right at the crossroads of all the other bullshit. The media are made up of equal parts advertising, politics, business, public relations, and show business. These people are sitting right at bullshit junction. There's enough bullshit in the media for Texas to open a branch office. And you still have enough left over to start 2 law firms and a Christian bookstore.
What has American Freedom Radio ever done for us?
Provide us with free education?
Well, that's obviously effective, but apart from reversing the dumbing down of America...
All the information they provide is free?
What about the free podium for broadcast activists to speak from, man?
Exploiting commonplace corruption?
They help vulnerable people who don't have a voice?
Bringing light to important information nobody else does.
Or they never censor, hang up, or cut off their guests? Well, that's no fun, is it?
Oh, they created a fantastic alternative media source during an era of bad, manipulative, and infiltrated mainstream and alternative media shows and scum.
Okay, well, apart from the free education, free information, free podium for broadcast activists to speak from, exposing commonplace corruption, helping vulnerable people without a voice, bringing light to important information nobody else does, and creating a fantastic commercial-free alternative media source in a sea of bad, manipulative mainstream and alternative media shills and scum, what has American Freedom Radio ever done for us?
Donate to American Freedom Radio today.
No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio.
Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to the second hour of Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and Tom Secker is sticking with us for the second hour. In the first hour, we were, of course, joined by our good friend Aaron Franz from ageoftransition.com and also of tmpodcast.com, not themesandmemes.com. I screwed that one up. So if you want to check out Aaron's show that he does with our friend Adam, it is tmpodcast.com. And Tom, I think we've both been on the show, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, check out those episodes. And I guess quickly I'll just mention that we've got the response on Patreon has been wonderful. We've got a bunch new people who have signed up, including I'm trying to find the new people. Thank you, Isaiah, Jason, and Vim. Oh, and Jess too. Those are all new people that have signed up, but let's just thank everybody real quick. So also thank you Arnar, Joshua, Howard, Lee, Sally, Jacob W, Jake, Jacob F, Vim, Hassan, Walter, Peter, Janice, Jenny, Pamela, Quentin, Arthur, Matthew, JC, Ben, and Marianne. Thank you all so much for becoming subscribers. Again, the subscriber-only podcast is out. So, become a subscriber at the $5 level, and you can listen to that. I'll have a new one coming out very soon as well. Really, really helps me out a lot. And so, thank you all for that. I'll also say I promised a good friend of the show, Josh, that I would mention him on the air. And he's from North Carolina, and he actually put me down for a write-in candidate, along with Holden McNeely, who's a comedian. So thank you very much, Josh. I hope you're listening right now. I know you'll be listening later. One vote for Porkins Policy Radio that we know of out there. Anyone else that has also put my name down, please do let us know. You can tweet me right now if you're listening live, or email me, or you can tell me later, and we'll be sure to mention it on the show. As I was saying to Tom during the commercial break, I'm not too sure where we're going to go in this second hour. But maybe we can start with this documentary that I watched the other night that was on TCM. Really worth watching. It's called The Perfect Candidate. And it's a 1996 documentary by R.J. Cutler and David Van Taylor, and it chronicles Oliver North's unsuccessful run for the Senate seat in Virginia back in 1994. And he ran against Chuck Robb, who is like the boringest man you've ever met. Very dull, very awkward too. And in a lot of ways it like perfectly mirrors the presidential election that we have right now. And I'll just like throw this out there, get your kind of take on it, Tom, because there's a whole aspect in the documentary where these questions come out about North sort of talking about how he liked the Confederate flag, or that it was a historical thing and it wasn't that bad. And he kind of goes back and forth saying that he didn't say that, but when he's speaking to another crowd, he did kind of say that. And he also gets David Duke's endorsement in the film as well. They talk about that, which again reminded me very much of the Donald Trump. Oh, no, I'm not a racist, but I mean, I don't know who David Duke is, and again, sort of using those like dog whistles out there to kind of let people know, don't worry, I understand, your grievances, the white angry males. And then on the flip side, you have Chuck Robb, who is, I guess kind of a bit more of an insider, very unrelatable Democrat, very much like Hillary Clinton, could not have a conversation with a normal person. And he, of course, loved to hang out, at Virginia Beach at big Coke parties and, famously got, what he said was just a massage from Playboy model, Tay Collins. And then both of them go back and forth throughout the documentary, accusing the other person of lying. And North also portrays himself as the outsider who's going to come in and clean up Washington. And people genuinely seemed to have liked Oliver North because he was a criminal, because he did do these illegal things or he didn't play by the rules in much the same way that Donald Trump has, people seem to idolize him because he does say awful things and he does, skirt the law in so many ways. So really, really interesting documentary. Very, definitely worth watching. But I guess, I don't know, Tom, I mean, obviously you haven't seen it, but talking in the way of like an Oliver North character, someone who was very much an insider and then I guess, quote, became an outsider and then went on to have this sort of, I guess, illustrious career as a Fox News broadcaster, and also a best-selling author. Is it like, what happens, what will become Donald Trump 2.0? Because I guess, I mean, and, I, not a fan of Ollie North, but I think he could at least, handle himself a little bit better, when it came to losing and things like that. But, where do you see, the Donald going after, like, is he going to just have like a big temper tantrum? Just go like on a Twitter tirade or I guess this is like kind of a scary thought, but like, what if he says this is rigged and he asks for a recount or something? Like what's going to happen tonight? I don't know. It's a very open-ended question.
No, it's fair enough. Well, first, I had no idea that Ollie North ran for Congress, for Senate?
For Senate, yeah, in Virginia. He actually, he didn't, I think he only lost by like maybe 4 or 5%.
I mean, for like an international criminal like Oliver North, it's,
Well, and he had, Mark Merritt was, I think, the communications director, and his campaign manager was, Lee Atwater, underling, who, he was very famous for, producing this Republican memo that got leaked out, that he even leaked it, accusing the then Speaker of the House of being a closeted gay man. And I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head, but because of that, he got fired and Lee Atwater got to, continue on being, head of the RNC. And Lee Atwater, of course, is a fascinating character, one of Roger Stone's mentors, as well. But yeah, no, Oliver North did run. He had a scary amount of support as well. And also, again, did the whole, Chuck Robb doesn't really care about the African American vote, I really understand that because the Democrats have been lying to them, while at the same time, David Duke is, I really like what Ollie North is talking about. And the biggest irony, of course, is that Chuck Robb is accused of doing coke at these parties down in Virginia Beach, while, of course, Oliver North was probably shipping in that very same cocaine. Again, like, reminds me of Epstein. But Tom, what's your take?
Well, again, it's one of those examples of just how detached from reality people are when it comes to politics, that they care more about something like what did he say about the Confederate flag? And I'm thinking, does that really matter? I mean, it's a flag. Okay, it represents some good ideas and some pretty terrible ideas. So I can understand there's a kind of tension over what does this symbol mean? Are we allowed to use this symbol and things? But it's like over here, it's, if someone gets caught having a Nazi flag hanging up in their living room, or like there was a massive scandal over the head of Formula One having some Nazi-themed orgy with a couple of prostitutes. And you're just thinking, okay, that's a bit kind of off, but is it really relevant? Is it really relevant to the question that we're actually asking of this person? And so there again, you have, this Democrat who, he took some coke. Well, so what? Plenty of people have taken coke. It's not like he was shipping the stuff in and trying to get 14-year-old girls addicted to it or something. I mean, that, if he was doing that, fair enough. Throw him in prison as far as I'm concerned. But it's, what I mean? People care about what people say and the kind of minor scandalous transgressions of their personal life far more than they care about what has this person actually done as a person, as a human being in the world, doing business and having a career and a family and whatever else, life, real life. What have they actually done and what does that say about them as a human being? Because, again, you look at the two presidential candidates we've got and people are so detached from that. And you look at them and you think, well, Donald Trump pretends to be this, everyone's sending all the jobs overseas and that's why the economy's crashed. And you're thinking, yeah, but you were perfectly happy to hire illegal immigrants and get rich off neoliberal economic policy when it suited you. So to turn around and slag it off now is completely hypocritical and has nothing to do with you as a person and what you have actually done with your life. But because he says these things, because he makes the statement, that's what people latch on to. So again, it's the trivialities of what people say in public and their rhetoric in public, rather than the realities, the important realities of what sort of human being are they? What have they actually done with their lives? Again, it's just another symbol of how detached people are from the important things and the real things and how captivated and addicted they are to the trivial, superficial nonsense of unreality, of fantasy and rhetoric and persuasive illusion, which seems to be, that's kind of like the underlying theme of what's screwing up our society. I mean, I agree with what we were saying before the break. Things aren't, just going to hell in a handbasket. A lot of people like to say that and like to believe that, and from that then you get the politics of nostalgia and, it's not how it used to be and can't we just recreate how it was 60 years ago because I've got some fuzzy, rose-tinted, romanticized idea of that. And so, this is kind of the quandary and the problem of our age. And something that, in a lot of ways, it's a lot more important to try and confront that, or at least recognize it and see if we can try and do something about it, than it is to engage on any specific political issue or topic. Even foreign policy and even the economy, I would say, are not quite as pressing. However, important and sometimes devastating those things are, I'd still say they are less important than trying to find some way of combating and confronting and counteracting this pure, incredible detachment from reality that we are developing. Day by day, it just seems to be getting worse. That's the thing that's most fundamentally getting worse to me. No, certainly. And I mean, it's like, where does it go, from there? Well, you asked me, what is Donald Trump 2.0? I don't know, some kind of Pentagon bot developed by... Really, how... If we're in the position where there's still, 51-49 chance that Donald Trump, green reality TV star, spouting quasi-fascist nonsense, could actually become president. And then you look at the other alternative and you think, that's why he could become president. Yeah, right, exactly. Both of these candidates are like, if they were up against anyone else, they'd lose. If they were up against anyone who was remotely serious or competent or sober, they would lose. So it's only because the two candidates are so talented, both of them have got so far. Which is actually, going back to what you were saying before the break, that's the kind of grand irony of this, that the worse the candidates get, Freudian slip, the worse the candidates get, the more people are actually engaging with and believing in the office of politics, the office of the White House, the president, all of that. Why? I don't kind of get how, I honestly actually don't understand that. It's extremely ironic and, important to say, I think. But you know what I mean? You were saying how this has actually reinvigorated the office of the president in a way that Obama never did, Bush never did, Clinton never did, Reagan and Bush one never did, Carter, go back as far as you like. None of them sort of, you'd have to go back quite a long way before you found that people actually believed in the presidency as much as they do seem to now. For a long time, it's like people have been very cynical about politics, and somehow this election, with the two most abominable candidates imaginable, has actually...
It really matters now.
Yeah, it really matters. It's reinvigorated people's interest in politics, which is totally bizarre to me. It would make more sense to me if people had just become apathetic and you'd got 30 million less people voting this time just because there's no one to vote for. I would have got that a lot more, but if anything, we seem to be getting the opposite.
Well, I mean, and again, we're talking about us being the willing fools, and it's like, we're all so awake out there, right? Quote unquote, and we're alternative and whatnot. But yet again, we're so many, are falling back into this trap of voting matters and the president matters and we must honor the office of the presidency, as long as it's our guy. So it's very funny. I don't know. I think for this whole, it's all this anti-establishment outsider, crap that's been floating around. This has become in so many ways the most atypical establishment run campaign where, you've got everybody now is invested in this. Everybody seems to think that this matters and that this is important. And that again, that the president has so much power, and that they can do everything and anything. That Trump doesn't even have to, the Trump people, he doesn't even have to do a signing statement. What he says, is the word, and that's it. That's the end of it. He waves his hands around and, says something, and it's just going to happen like that. So, it's like shocking when you take a step back and you look at this and you see, but you are falling for everything that your parents, were doing. And I also found it interesting, and I'll get your comment on this, Tom, but just before we're actually, election day, we get to the two biggest scandals or potential scandals with both of them, Trump and Clinton, are resolved. So, boom, there's nothing in the emails, big surprise, the FBI is not going to go after Hillary Clinton. And of course, the rape lawsuit against Donald Trump is dropped. So those are the two big scandals that were sort of haunting them in the background. They're gone. And now we're left with this, you got to vote for one or the other. So I don't know if that's related. I assume so on some level, that people wanted this result, because you have to think too, it's like, well, if one of these people wins, that is going to follow them if it's not resolved before Election Day. So if Hillary Clinton wins, and then it's like, okay, but what about Anthony Weiner was sending, encrypted emails? Or Donald Trump wins, and it's, wait, you raped a 13-year-old girl? So, very, and I know everyone is quick to say, of course, with the Trump people is, so she was a liar, and she's a liar. Juanita Broderick is a truth teller. And then, vice versa with Clinton, it's there's nothing, everybody loved James Comey when he went after her the second time, but now they hate him again, and there's nothing to say. And of course, it is like an insane amount of emails that he's claiming to have read. There's no way he did. But and those will fade into the background. They will become irrelevant. They will become they're the conspiracy theories of both sides. The Trump people are, it's only the Hillary supporters that want to talk about Trump's sexual predator history. And then vice versa. Well, it's only Trump people care about what's in those emails, and they disappear, and we're just sort of back to, politics as usual. Vote for, as South Park would say, the giant douche or the turd sandwich. And just sort of accept that. I don't know. I mean, what did you think of or what do you think of just that? The sort of these scandals are over. And it just seems like business as usual now.
Well, I think, yeah, it is a curious coincidence. I mean, it was curious that we had the thing with the, whatever the number we're up to in terms of the Hillary Clinton email scandal, 12 or something of that it hits so close to the election. And I was thinking, surely this isn't going to swing the election. It isn't going to be that important, no matter how much of a brouhaha both sides were making over it. So you're right. It is curious that has now just, oh no, nothing to see. Turn away, go away. Doesn't matter anymore. And likewise with Trump. I mean, I saw this in the news that the lawsuit has now been dropped. Did you see, why? What's the explanation for why this? I don't know if they've given an official. I know that so the woman who is sort of the public face is Katie Johnson. She was getting threats. People were threatening her. People were, she canceled a press conference that she was going to do with Lisa Bloom. And Ed Opperman did a pretty good analysis of this, and all the people, who would know who she is if she's anonymous? And believe me, people know. It's not that trust me, people know who she is. But she was getting threats. I assume that's part of it. The case, I think, was always a little bit kind of I don't want to say flimsy, but I don't know if it had the most sort of solid footing. You don't think they had the best odds of winning, basically? No. And I think there were some, as I've said before, the way I viewed that was there is so much of a ring of truth, especially that, Katie Johnson says that she was trying to become a model. This is, this was not, Trump used to throw these, lavish Coke parties. He never did any. But with all sorts of models and stuff at the Plaza, this is back in the 90s. This has been widely reported. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. He was doing that. There's such a ring of truth to a lot of what she says, but at the same time, I mean, we're talking about something that happened several decades ago, intense scrutiny and pressure on this woman. And interestingly too, as Ed Opperman has pointed out, Epstein has settled numerous cases, with people that have accused him of stuff. He's paid people off. Why not with this one? Why was he not willing to just, he's already a convicted pedophile, right? He's nothing is changing. This guy's not making a comeback. He's not going to any more Clinton dinners. He's not hanging out with Trump down in Mar-a-Lago. Why not? No, he's hiding out on that weird island that you showed me. Yes, with the bizarre occult temple on the corner of it. Why not just pay her whatever she wants? And interestingly too, Katie Johnson was not looking for a lot of money. She wasn't looking for $5 million. She was some token sum. So I don't think this was about the money. I still believe, most of her. I mean, what we shouldn't believe her, but we should believe every woman that's accused Bill Clinton. I mean, come on, let's not cut hairs. Well, with both of them, it's like you don't want to prejudge evidence and things like that, but you just think, well, there's no smoke without fire. These people have this reputation and behave in this way for a reason. It's because they're, raving, sex-crazed misogynists who think they can just do whatever they like to women. So therefore, it's not at all outside the realm of possibility. It's not at all unbelievable that Trump is guilty of what this lawsuit was accusing him of. But of course, there is a huge, huge area between being guilty of something and someone else being able to prove it. Yes. Particularly, as you say, when it's, it happened a long time ago. Witnesses, people get bought off, people get intimidated, they don't want to talk. Maybe they saw something, but they're not quite sure what they saw, blah, blah, blah. All of these things are very problematic in a legal case. Even in a case like this, where it's not beyond reasonable doubt, where you would go to a jury and it's actually on the balance of evidence or something, isn't it? when it's a private lawsuit, it goes to what do you think was the more likely thing here, because it doesn't have any criminal implications. So, yeah, like you, I can believe Trump did it. To be honest, from the first moment I saw that story, I thought that's probably true.
Yeah,
it's horrible, but it's probably true.
Mm.
So maybe you're right. Maybe it's just got to a point where the problems, the difficulties that you have in trying to bring a case like this weighed up against the likelihood of success, weighed up against the problems you're going to get, and the fact that once it's really public and everyone knows who that is and everyone could go and potentially throw bricks or Molotovs or something.
Well, she's publicly shown her face now. She's pictures of her all over the Daily Mail. So she's put a name. She's put a name to her face, and I mean, my hat's off to her for that. Anybody that's, especially if your rapist is a high-profile person, like Trump is. But listen, too, I mean, Virginia Roberts or Virginia Gaffari is I think that's how her last name is pronounced now. Listen, the case that she had against Alan Dershowitz, the defamation case, that, they dropped that as well. That's not to say that Alan Dershowitz wasn't up to his eyeballs in this nonsense. It got to a point where they were like, we're not going to win this. We're wasting time, we're wasting money and all this other stuff. And they dropped that, but I mean, there was nothing that they were alleging in that. It's not as if, all of that was nonsense. I don't know, that's how Dershowitz spins it. You know what I mean? But just because that's dropped doesn't mean that the allegations are untrue. And that's what was really said if you read, like the Brad Edwards and her lawyers, what they're actually saying is that it's not that this isn't true. It's just that we understand that we're not going to win this the way that we want to. And, again, people are so familiar with like the criminal justice system through like Law and Order or something, or through all sorts of, TV shows. They don't really understand the intricacies of all of this stuff. Listen, Trump has sued everybody that sued him. Why didn't he sue this woman?
Fair question.
For defamation.
Just to pick up on what you were just saying, you're right. Most people's impression of the justice system like that. And what are those sorts of cases? They're always cases that depend in some way on forensic evidence. It's always about, the DNA test or the blood on the hammer or something. Whereas trying to prove something like this is all about the reliability of witnesses, the ability to try and get confirming statements and corroborating evidence and stuff like that. It's a lot harder to win than when you've got a hammer with a bunch of blood and fingerprints on it. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more complex. And so, like you say, people's impressions of this is that, it should be dead simple. If he raped her, then she should be able to prove it. And if he didn't, then she won't be able to. Well, no. That's really, sadly, maybe not sadly, because I suppose you have to have standards of evidence if you're going to accuse people of things. But it's kind of sad in a reality that so often people who are guilty, you can't prove it, and people who aren't guilty actually get found guilty of things they've never done. And the complexities of the justice system mean that wrong result actually happens probably more often than not. Actually, I don't know how one would calculate that, but certainly a significant enough proportion of the time that it does beg the question of how well the justice system is actually dispensing justice.
No, and I'll just I saw it in the chat room. Jenny just said that there was an article saying that she fabricated the story, but they gave no reason for saying that. And that's right, Jenny. They didn't give any reason. That's what they're saying is that, she made this all up, but no specifics. They haven't said what she made up. Even in the Daily Mail article, they said, there's a lot of inconsistencies in her story. And then they go through her whole story, but they're never like, this is the inconsistency or this is wrong. It's a pretty, straightforward, and again, this is like straight out of Epstein's playbook. All of this with having the slightly older, like an 18, 19-year-old or 20-year-old, they're the one that's getting this young girl to go over there, again, using the modeling as a pretext. So yeah, I mean, the media is very keen on basically saying she's she's a liar, because that's a default for any, victim of sexual assault, male or female. Right, but they're not giving any, they're not saying, well, what's the fabrication, And again, perfect example of the criminal justice system, being run by the media and the press. Oh, okay, because the Daily Mail said it, it must be true now all of a sudden. And also, I mean, there are lots of reasons people drop cases, and I think that the fact that she was getting threats that, also these people like Gloria Allred, Lisa Bloom, they're not idiots, okay? They want to win cases. So they're not going to pick cases that they know they're going to lose. So keep that in mind. Gloria Allred is loves being in front of the camera and all this sort of stuff, but she's not stupid. And she doesn't pick cases where she thinks she's going to lose. So they vet these people. Keep that in mind. This isn't, they're not just doing this for the PR of it. They're also doing it because they want to win. And if they lose, then it's this mark of shame. And I think for all of Lisa Bloom or Gloria Allred's, issues or problems, I don't think they want to involve themselves, with people, especially in like a sexual assault or a rape case where, they lose it and then people, all rape victims make it up. But anyway, I mean, maybe we should, move on. This is, from the Donald Trump rape, but it was, I did find it very interesting that it was like, it was like this reset, Tom, where it's, okay, the FBI email scandal, no problem here. Rape allegations, we're done with that. Let's just reset everything, and nothing has really changed now. It's still the diehard people on either side, and we're just sort of back to square one. I think this will also kind of be the, I wonder if this is sort of the nail in the coffin, when it comes to these scandals, especially you look at like a Jeffrey Epstein. This has been lurking in the shadows throughout the whole election, but nobody has really been comfortable to say anything. After this, it's like, is that it? Is that the end of it? Who's going to mention it? And it seemed, especially if they're pressuring these people behind the scenes, who's going to come forward now? December there will be some hearings, I believe, in the Ghislaine Maxwell defamation suit. But other than that, I mean, I wonder again, is that a byproduct of this election too? Is sort of putting to bed these scandals, or making them sort of palatable to a degree,
normalizing them to some extent.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've done that with the sexual assault stuff, because you've got Trump saying and presumably doing horrible things and nobody really cares. Same with Bill Clinton, or they just, who cares if Bill did something? He's not running for president. And then again, you wonder, like, well, what's the, like, are we going to now have a presidential candidate win who's, like, been sued, like, went through the court system for sexual harassment or assault or something like that? Again, like, is that the next step? I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Tom?
Well, I do feel that, like, right now, I mean, today, the day of the election, it's kind of the eye of the storm. It's the bit where it's sort of, like you said, everyone feels a little bit subdued. And I've noticed this myself, mainly in terms of like following this on social media. Right up until yesterday, everyone was still bitching and arguing and throwing mud and, thrust and counter thrust. No, it's got to be this person, got to be that person, blah, 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 blah. Today, I've seen very, very little of that. If any, really. It's like everyone's just sort of resigned, okay, now we're at the election, we've kind of got to go through the ritual process. Mm-hmm. But I can't help but think, tomorrow, the next day, the storm's going to start up again. Yeah. Like I say, we're in the middle, the quiet bit, right in the middle. And all hell's going to break loose, at least in terms of like media coverage and, all of that stuff. That's all just going to start up again later in the week. And the whole process, to be honest, is very closely reflected in what's going on over here with the fallout from the EU referendum vote, in that you've still got this kind of lingering hostility and tension and antagonism and polarization in particular, people being so divided and there being no kind of reasonable middle ground on which anyone can agree on anything. And it has got to the point where, like, no one seems to even know what leaving the EU will look like, what the process will be like, what we're trying to get or not get out of it. It's just, no, got to be done. We voted for it, therefore it's got to be done.
Right.
The sooner the better. And I'm thinking, well, that's no way to approach, like, probably the biggest political decision that's been made in this country since the Iraq War. If possibly even, longer than that, bigger than that. And the people on the other side just seem to be content with kind of slinging mud and being smug and saying, I told you so. And I'm like, well, that's not going to accomplish anything either. So you asked me right at the top of the hour, what's Trump going to do next? Anyone's guess. This is Donald Trump we're talking about. He's not a very predictable man. It would not surprise me if he loses, if he drags this out, if he tries to turn this into some great big thing, some great big, assault on Hillary Clinton and the rigged election and all the rest of it. At the same time, it wouldn't surprise me that much if he just folds and goes away, because Donald Trump has exploited people's sense of victimization so well, and people's, alienation from the kind of establishment, neoliberal, neoconservative political setup you have in the US. So many of those people are like, they're voting for Donald Trump just because they're kind of sick of what they've normally got. And I get that. I do get why people are sick of the establishment and the normal state of affairs. And so I think an awful lot of those people will just accept it. They'll just go back to the same, they'll complain, they'll bitch and moan, they'll feel victimized, they'll feel let down and disappointed and that the whole thing was an anticlimax. But they'll just sort of live with it, because in a lot of ways, when you've got that kind of self-victimizing attitude or mentality, whether justified or unjustified, it just kind of carries on that way. You know what I mean? So I think I don't know. I don't know what the hell the next step is going to be, but it wouldn't surprise me to see either of those two scenarios. Either a sort of, another battle, another great round of tension and hostility, or just giving up and going away and saying, well, what did you expect? Because a lot of those people will just go away thinking, oh, well, he had the election stolen from him. We're the victims of a stitch-up by the establishment. And since that's what they think anyway, it's kind of easy for them to just carry on thinking that and carry on not really doing anything about it except occasionally supporting a crazy political candidate like Trump. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but like I say, either of those two is a distinct possibility.
Yeah. No, I actually I think it'll actually be business as usual, because in so many ways this campaign has been business as usual. I think it's been dressed up like this crazy, anti-establishment versus the establishment, David and Goliath, all of this kind of rhetoric. But in so many ways it's been very, as we said, it's invigorated people to want to be involved in politics. I make the case in an episode I did recently on Roger Stone that this is straight out of his playbook. Always sort of supporting the quote unquote anti-establishment candidate, many times who's anti-war. And I don't really believe that Trump is anti-war, but that's the image, and ultimately to serve his real paymasters, and the people that really pull the strings, which is just ultimately the war party. It doesn't, this Democrat, Republican, those are just silly labels. But I think in a lot of ways this, with that being said, I think that, I assume there will be a smooth transition of government. There might be some sort of complaining and whatnot, but, I also, maybe in a very kind of, overarching conspiratorial way. I don't know if you know, the Roger Stones of this campaign and whatnot. I don't know if they want to jeopardize if they want to set that precedent. You know, because then what happens the next time? What happens when they really find the whack job candidate that's going to win? You know, do they want somebody well, no, he didn't really. I want a recount of everything. You know, I think that's this whole rigged thing is it's a slippery slope. You know, because what happens when the other person uses it?
Oh, sure. I totally get what you're saying. It's Pandora's box. You open up that, it's like, well, can we trust all the votes that Donald Trump got then?
Yeah.
If you're saying that the election has somehow been defrauded, then how can we trust the result at all? Even if there's a different or maybe says the same thing again, how can we trust that then? I mean, at what point do you give up? At what point do you say, no, you just got to accept it? Because go back to 2000. A lot of people think Bush stole Florida, and there's a reasonable amount of evidence saying Bush did steal Florida and thus stole that election. Well, not Bush, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And Roger Stone helped him do
it. And so did Al Gore really do anything? There was a bit of pissing and moaning. There was a bit of threatenings of recounts and going down there. And I remember seeing Michael Moore on Newsnight here in this country saying, no, I'm going to go down there personally and ensure all of those votes are counted. And I'm like, well, that never happened, did it?
Yeah.
So people like to say it. There's a lot of, you know, sound and fury signifying nothing. And that's kind of what this whole election has been. Like you say, there's been all of this tension and all of this threatening accusations and fear-mongering and all the rest of it. But ultimately, chances are Hillary Clinton's going to win. Chances are very few things are going to change, if any, really. I suppose, worst case scenario, Hillary Clinton invades Syria on Thursday. Which would be a disaster, to be honest, but okay. Yeah. Is anything ultimately going to change all that much, or I get the second half of this storm and it's all going to get very angry and very loud. And like Aaron was saying, it's very attention seeking. You know, these are strongly charged symbols and magnets for people's attention, but will any of that real world consequence? Because since people are so divorced from reality, and since they are voting and arguing about these things, not on the basis of reality, but on the basis of convenient fantasies, does any of that actually have any impact on the real world? I see what Aaron's saying, that, you know, if enough people think it, it kind of starts to come true. If enough people think it, they create it, they bring it into being. There is something to that. But when the fantasies and the dreams and the things that people are thinking of are so absurd, it's very difficult for them to be brought into reality in a meaningful way. They can kind of become real, but still not have an awful lot of consequence, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't expect an awful lot. I expect you will wake up tomorrow and, like you say, you'll be more concerned as to whether your iPhone is still working than with the result of the election. And as absurd as, I mean, you know, I wish it wasn't an iPhone, but okay, I'll forgive you for that.
Right.
Yeah, the real practicalities of life probably aren't going to change for very many people at all, if any. So, thus,
no,
those are the things that actually
matter. And if Trump loses, well, what's he going to do with all of his supporters? You know, is he going to help them? Is he going to, you know, is he going to run for Senate? Is he going to try and run for president again? Is he going to do anything to help those people? You know, I mean, that's the big, you know, Hillary Clinton is a liar, okay? And nothing she says or, you know, any of her campaign promises, you can guarantee that it's all bullshit. But what about Trump? You know, what you know, how is tomorrow going to be different if he loses? Or, I mean, if he wins too, come on, he's not going to do anything that he said, but I almost feel like it's like if he loses, he has more, you know, there's more pressure on him. And is he going to deliver that, you know? Or is he going to, I mean, I guess on some level they've built this weird new right-wing coalition, you know, of like Alex Jones followers and David Duke and, you know, the kind of like white nationalist, psychos out there. But like what happens with that sort of that electorate, and how does Trump address them? How does he help them in the future? How is he going to stop the rapist Mexicans and the Muslim terrorists from coming in? Is he going to even care, or is he going to go back to the Celebrity Apprentice?
Well, I mean, he's been replaced on Celebrity Apprentice, so I can only assume he's going to have to found his own TV company or something to get back into that.
Yeah. And Aaron was talking about that on an episode recently, I think, on Themes and Memes, and the idea that he creates like the Blaze, but it's like for Trump. Which would be interesting, I mean, or I don't know, he like funds InfoWars or something.
Maybe he already is. Who knows? But
right.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, that particular political demographic has been around for a while. We saw this with the Tea Party, which maybe wasn't like that to begin with, but quite rapidly turned into another version of that. And now we call it the alt-right, or whatever the hell else people want to label it as. I don't like the label alt-right, precisely because it plays into that, we're counter-establishment, we're fighting against the system, we're the victimized ones. And I'm thinking, on balance, you're not really the victimized ones, or certainly not the most victimized ones. I care a lot more about the people who, their homes have been destroyed in Syria than I do about the fact that your pension plan isn't worth quite as much as you think it should be. Okay, maybe quite a lot of people in the West are getting screwed in a way, but they're not getting screwed that badly. They're not, the most victimized people in this situation. And so, yeah, just to go back to what I was saying before, that particular demographic, even more so than I would say any other realm of identity politics, has that self-victimized mentality. And so I think they will carry on in that vein. They're not going to go away, that's for sure. But I think they will possibly flee even further from reality. Certainly until the next election comes along and someone tries to do another Donald Trump and grab hold of that and ride the waves to the White House. But yeah, they're not going away. Donald Trump is, to answer your question, going to do absolutely nothing to help them, because he doesn't care. He just wanted their attention and their votes. And so all of the same real world and fantasized problems that have bred that whole movement, none of those are going to be resolved. So all of those grudges, whether real or otherwise, are still going to be there. And I have a feeling we're probably just going to go through the same sort of pantomime, but somewhat rebranded next time. I don't know quite what that's going to look like. You brought up Kanye West, which is, as absurd as it sounds, you could
it's like totally in the realm of possibility now.
It is now. That this election has proven that, if anything, things like that can happen. So maybe we are looking at something more like that, where it's, I don't know, where the identity politics maybe will slip to the side a little bit, and it'll be more about pure celebrity worship, pure cult of personality. And that it will all be about the individual, the person themselves. What do we think of them? What do we think of the things they say, the appearance they give off? Because even with this election, as absurdly divorced from reality and policy as it's been, there still has been a little bit of politics involved. I can see by the next election, politics won't really matter.
No, it'll be irrelevant.
I think that maybe the next one, maybe the one after that, it will get to a point where it's all just about the president is so important, the presidential office is so important, and it's an individual. It's not their cabinet, it's not their party, it's not any of that. It's just the individual themselves that we will be worshipping in some way and trying to worship them into the White House, if you like. I think that is the thing that's certainly going to continue. Exactly who and what kind of celebrity would come along to capitalize on the alt-right? Very hard to say, because I didn't see Trump coming. I honestly didn't.
No, neither did I.
I don't think a lot of people did. I don't think a lot of people, when he first appeared on the scene, thought he was going to be successful either. So he's like that can be, and you can be sure there's a few people out there thinking, yeah, give it another 4 years, slightly rebrand what Trump did, make it seem, take out some of the parts that really, really offended and pissed off some people, and maybe you've got a platform there that would actually win. I'm sure there are some people thinking like that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I almost think that, particularly this like alt-right or whatever, that section of this, I think they're going to go even deeper into the internet and technology. Like that's where they operate to begin with. None of these people want to, they're all anonymous people with, all their avatars are all Pepe the Frog or some variation on that. They are afraid of really, saying who they are. And they all live on like 4chan and, Daily Stormer and on Twitter, and they troll people, and that's it. That's, and I think they're going to go deeper into that reality. And again, just farther in, separate themselves more and more from tangible existence with human beings. And I've talked to, recently on the, about the sort of transhumanist stuff, and how and again, this election too, we were moving more and more into that realm, like how much of this election has been fought over Twitter. We're talking about, Anthony Weiner is involved in a scandal where it's all cyber, he never did anything physically. So I see like those people, moving further into that realm, becoming more and more cut off, from reality and from humanity. But I mean, I think at the same time, the ground has been laid for, they seemed at least, on the face of it to be kind of, well, we're political now. Now we have to care. We have to do something. But who knows? Because, I mean, look at how many, the Ron Paul revolution or Ralph Nader or, Jill Stein even, these movements. The
Tea Party.
The Tea Party, exactly.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, where are the Bernie people? So, yeah, again, take a step back, everybody, looking at this and remove all of all of these like ideas and rhetoric and these images and movements and stuff, and you start to see that this is really like any other election. There's been really no difference aside from the maybe the level of discourse has dropped off. What politicians are allowed to do and say publicly and in private has become that bar has been lowered. But yeah, it's kind of all the same shit, more or less.
Well, and just to pick up on what you were saying there, I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I don't know if you got to see it, one of the Podesta emails I sent you the other day, where they were having this lengthy conversation with Eric Schmidt of Google, and it was all about like building this massive database of voters, and they were talking about like virtual voters and things like this, which seems to be like mass data derived from social media, looking at how people respond to certain stories and statements and poll results and blah, 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 and trying to build from that a kind of, real world simulation of how people are going to vote and which voters we need to appeal to in what kinds of ways and so on. And you think an awful lot of what people post on social media is complete bullshit anyway. So
how easily you can manipulate it.
Yeah, well, and how seriously should you take that data as a basis for figuring out some kind of election strategy? So it seems like even the people within these campaigns are pretty transhumanist, escapist realm, where it's not even really about the real world anymore, even for them. Yeah.
Oh, I was, me and my friends have been watching the debates over at my apartment, the past 3 times, and they're much more, I would say, or they're not into, alternative media or as deep into this as me or you might be, and, and analyzing it. And they were just shocked at, how many like Twitter questions were asked or, according to online Twitter polls, like, this person, this can't, Trump is up. And it's like, why does that even matter? How is that like a metric that we're not, Facebook likes?
That's how we're going to judge our expectations and our predictions, is it?
Yeah.
On a Twitter poll. Really?
Yeah, right. Or, how many hits you're getting on YouTube or something like that. As if that means anything. Well, anyway, I hope we haven't bored you all to death or made you feel too cynical on this election day, but I did have a fun time talking. And Tom, thank you for joining us, and I will be talking to everybody next week.
News and information you can trust. This is American Freedom Radio. Freedom, American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Are you feeling embarrassed and stuck because you can't focus or concentrate? I have a confession to make. I spent years unable to think clearly, like I was in a fog. I was going through the motions, running my companies, and I hated feeling groggy and mentally sluggish. I couldn't get ahead like this. It's no secret the powers that be want us dumbed down. Chemicals, fluoride, our brains are under siege, and we are experiencing lower IQs. But now there's a weapon to fight back and win. Introducing DNA Evolve, a revolutionary breakthrough in a category of cognitive enhancers called nootropics. I've been using DNA Evolve and couldn't feel better. For me, it works. It feels great to get things done again and get ahead. Try a free sample for yourself at DNAEvolvesample.com. That's DNAEvolvesample.com. Supplies are limited, so go to DNAEvolvesample.com right now.
Nutritious food is real body armor. It builds muscle, burns fat, improves digestion, and feeds the entire body the nutrients it needs. Did you know the U.S. government banned the hemp plant from growing in the United States and classified it as a Schedule I drug to hide it behind the marijuana plant? People have been confused about this plant for over 80 years, and many still don't know what hemp is. So now you know hemp is not marijuana, and marijuana is not hemp. They are different varieties of the same species. HempUSA.org wants the world to know these basic facts and to help people understand that hemp protein powder is the best kept health secret you need to know about. Remember, hemp protein powder contains 53% protein, is gluten-free, anti-inflammatory, non-GMO, and is loaded with nutrients. Call 888-910-4367, 888-910-4367, and see what our powder, seeds, and oil can do for you. Only at HempUSA.org.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Simpson, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud. And it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. The eyes of fear want you to put bigger locks on your door, buy guns, close yourself off. The eyes of love instead see all of us as one. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom, and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs, and artillery batteries not included.
No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio.